Welcome to Dock Chat, the podcast that brings you the stories of the unique community of people who work, live and play in the historic Dockyard, Chatham. This is a series of 3 podcasts about the project to carry out a major restoration to Commissioner's House and will extend over the duration of the 18-month contract. In this episode we hear from Nigel Howard, Director of Historic Environment and Buildings. In part 1, Nigel talks about his career at the Dockyard and provides an introduction to the contract works.
My association with the Dockyard started very, very early in my life. I actually was awarded an apprenticeship here, but decided not to take it and went to a company called Metal Box because they paid a little bit more money. As a 16-year-old, I was always after the pennies. So I started as a technical apprentice, learnt my tool making trade and worked that for several years until the company I was working for moved away from the area and I had to find other employment. And having just got married, I needed to do something that was going to earn me some more money. And I somehow managed to get into the building industry. And that developed very quickly because I could read drawings, I could understand drawings from my engineering days and could understand specifications. So buildings very quickly came to me and the building industry very quickly came to me, and understanding the intricacies of how to put something together and how to maintain it and refurbish it. And I very quickly started working as a contracts manager. For myself, it was very difficult to manage people without understanding what they did. So I would buddy up with whatever trade was working at the time, carpenters, plasterers, decorators, to understand exactly what they were doing and how they were doing it. And my natural aptitude to dexterity, manual dexterity, meant that I would pick up these skills very quickly. Not to say I'm proficient in anything, but I have a good background knowledge of most building industries. I moved on to a slightly larger building company in the Medway towns, and this is now 84, 85, and by 86 we had won a contract in the Dockyard to work in the Admiral's office and put that back together and make a commercial office out of it, which was fascinating, interesting, and my first real steps into conservation work. Shortly after that, 88, 89, the company won a contract in the Commissioner's House to do a major restoration refurbishment project and create what was called the Cruise Quarters Club, a lovely dining club in what we would still call it the Cruise Quarters. Beautiful building, and we put some real nice finishes, and we developed it to be a very successful club, although it was short-lived as the economic downturn crashed and businessmen didn't go for lunches anymore. After the Commissioner's House project was completed, I continued to do a few other restoration projects within the Dockyard for the contractor. And as the economic climate changed, I left that contractor's employment and started my own business, specialising in maintenance and refurbishment from historic buildings to modern residential buildings, and actually started working directly for the Dockyard, for their surveyors, carrying out the maintenance work in the yard. There was a few Dockyard mateys still working here, but I supported them in doing the general maintenance work. And that continued until the lottery fund came about, and at that point I was asked if I would help monitor the works of the contractors, the principal contractors, during the works that they were undertaking. That made me a kind of a poacher and a gamekeeper, because I was still doing my own works and looking after other people's works. And that continued successfully for a few years. And then there was a change of chief executive in 2000. And at that point, I was asked if I would join the trust. It was a bit of a difficult decision at the time, but running a business on my own was proving quite stressful, quite difficult. And I thought I could serve the Dockyard better by working directly for them and being part of the Dockyard team, the Dockyard family. So in 2000 I joined and have then continued developing my experiences, my knowledge through various projects that we've done in the Dockyard. I was also supported to do a conservation degree, which has helped me immensely develop my detailed knowledge of conservation procedures and practices, and given me access to the wider environment so that we can do what is best for these buildings. With my practical head, I can also look closely at the buildings and see how they've been put together and how we need to look after them and maintain them. So having joined the Historic Dockyard Trust, my first large project was the restoration of number 7 covered slip, which was quite a daunting process, being responsible for such a large project and such an intricate project. But with the help of others, we managed to get a really nice project and a beautiful building. Some of the grandeur can't be seen from the ground, but it is a tremendous building. At the same time, we were working also on the 3 ships attraction. We're bringing in Cavalier, bringing in Gannet and sorting Osler out, which is another remarkable piece of engineering works that we've done as a team, as a small team, and we can still see the fruits of that today. And then going on from there, we've worked on the smithery, getting that put together. Great building. I remember well, as we were planning the building, we had to do some trial pits to try to understand how the building came together. And we'd known from the Dockyard model that's still in the smithery actually, that there were previous saw pits along what we thought was the western edge of the building. And I remember digging one of them saw pits and actually getting down into the base of the hole and still finding the wood shavings that had been left when the hole was filled in for the foundations of the smithery. And also remember that the second hole that we excavated, I actually put my whole arm underneath the building where the foundations had been washed away. That was quite a tremendous building to actually get involved in and see it develop into the gallery that we've got at the moment. It's only when you reflect on these kinds of works that you remember how much went into it at the time and how much your life revolved around getting this building put together and ready for the grand opening, which obviously happened, and it's a beautiful building now. And then at the same time we was working in 3 slip. You imagine how much of an engineering feat that was to get that lift into 3 slip. It's straightforward nowadays, you just see a tower, but in the time we had to get the lift to sit on unmade ground that went down to a granite base that was 6 metres below the surface level and was regularly wet with the tide. And we made that work. We developed that between us, between the small team that we had, and it's been fine ever since. And then from 3 slip we went on to the joiner shop, making that into the enterprise hub that it is now. New roof, new building inside, innovative in its time, design cues from a new architect, lovely space, and a really benefit for the trust. And then from there I had the honour and privilege actually of designing the trust's new offices in the abandoned sail loft. The sail makers had moved out and I was asked by the chief exec to design our new offices and make them fit into the space. And by the way, you haven't got much money to do it with. So we designed that. I say we, it was myself and some of the team set about putting design together. I remember distinctly spending one Christmas designing the staircase because we wanted to make an entranceway that worked for the benefit of the whole building. Even though we was only going to refurbish our one area, we wanted the building to benefit the whole. So I designed the staircase. I made that work over a Christmas period, trying to just get the ideas down on paper. And we put that building together and we did it with our very reasonable budget. It acted as a pathfinder because once our part had been finished, the University of Kent came along and they wanted to move into the other part. They could see the potential of the building. So we developed that for them. And then after that building completed, we went into the Command of the Oceans. And prior to putting the new building in, we had revamped the Hearts of Oak gallery. We insulated parts of the entrance bay. We'd put our thermal wall up. All of these things, these little jobs that come apart and we just move from job to job with various different contractors, learning all the time, learning how these buildings were put together, learning how the Georgians' construction processes went. And it's fascinating when you take these things apart to see how they were put together and the skills that were involved in doing that. Skills that we've largely lost these days, but you can see it, and there are one or two people that can still do them. After Command of the Oceans, we went on to the church, and we completed a rather splendid job in the church. For the University of Kent, we managed to get it working as their lecture theatre, and that involved a real mix of contractors, of different people managing it. We was managing it with the university. It was a real collaboration of works. And I think it came out as a really successful project at the end of the day. I know the university don't use it at the moment, but things move on and things change. The legacy of that building remains. It can still be used as a lecture theatre or an open space. It's, again, a lovely environment for people to use and has much more use in it than it ever did back in the 2000s. And then we go on to Fitted Rigging House, another great success. It's become one of the desirable places to rent in the Dockyard. Started as a gallery on the ground floor, and then we developed the upper floors for office use, put that beautiful circulation staircase in, come together really well. And then the south end was developed slightly after the principal ends, and that was a real turning point, I think, for the way the Trust works with the restoration of these historic buildings. We took on, at that point, when the south end of the Fitted Rigging House started, we started the works as the principal contractor, which is a bit of a variation from the others. We've just been managing contractors, but now we actually the principal contractor, responsible for the health and safety, for the works, for employing the tradesmen, the artisans, and getting the works coordinated to a budget. And I think the results of the Fitted Rigging House South speak for itself. We were very successful, and we've got a beautiful building that is now fully let. So we are using that model, that principal contractor model, to go on to the Commissioner's House. So the Commissioner's House is the next big project for me. But first of all, I wanted to talk about the history of the house. We know it replaced an original house there from the 1660s, 1670s, and Commissioner St Lowe, when he arrived at the Dockyard in 1703, didn't like the building and wanted a new one built to suit his grandeur, to suit his needs, to suit his status in life. And I think the whole Dockyard at that time was very, very different from what we've got at the moment, what we see at the moment. And the house we see at the moment isn't exactly what he would have seen. We've discovered that through our research, through the volunteers who have been researching the property, the front door wasn't where the front door is we see today. The staff staircase wasn't where the staff staircase is we see today. And these things have happened over time. And I think part of understanding a building, part of restoring the building, is to know all these things, to figure out what has changed over time. So we start off with a beautiful looking, it's actually Queen Anne style house. It's the grandest house in the Dockyard, always built over the 3 floors with a garret on the top, and a building that would have housed the Commissioner, his staff, his officers, his apprentices, and his housekeepers. I don't know who designed it. We know that it was commissioned by St Lowe, and it was built by artisan Dockyard tradesmen. We can tell from the letters from St Lowe that it was the local bricklayers, the local plasterers, the local carpenters that put it together. We know that the door was to the northern end, the front door was to the northern end. We do know that the door in the garden was to the south. And various little bits and pieces have changed on the house at the time. And actually the Commissioner's House, as we see today, is the oldest naval residence that we have in the country, in any of the dockyards. There is another one in Plymouth that is a little bit older, but it was damaged in World War II, and so we have the most complete house. So if we end up with this St Lowe's house, the letters that he wrote to the Navy Board and the Navy Board sent back to him have helped us identify various bits and pieces about the house. For example, how the windows looked at first. One of his letters that he wrote in frustration, it appears, gave the size of the glass for his windows. He was complaining about, does he buy it by the square or does he buy it by the piece of glass? Similar to how we would actually approach things today. But from those measurements he gave, we are able to determine the pretty much the pattern of the glass that would lead to the pattern of the windows that we're going to actually use. And part of our project is to replace the fenestration. But I won't talk about that yet. I'll just want to talk about the history of the house and what we've discovered so far. So from St Lo's time, we then go on to 1724. We've got Commissioner Kempthorne moves into the house. Commissioner Kempthorne was captain to the Royal Sovereign, which was the King's flagship, 1701 when it was first launched. Not built at Chatham, built in Woolwich. The Royal Sovereign was in dry dock in 1723. Kempthorne comes in to become the Commissioner of the Dockyard 1723-24. And we find that at that time, the officers' terrace was being built. The previous officers' residence were taken down, and that freed up the Commissioner's house to stand on its own. Prior to that date, the officers' houses had been right up and abutting the Commissioner's house. So by removing these houses, the Commissioner's house became more visible, and that's when Kempthorne asked for the front door to be moved to a more harmonious position, which is the position that we see today. It's the centre of the house, and it looks right, but to do that, I had to move the staff staircase, and the staff staircase is now in the next bay along to the south. Kempthorne, we think, we can't prove it at the moment because we can't find that letter, but Kempthorne was also responsible for moving the painting out of the grand cabin in the Royal Sovereign to the ceiling of the house. The Royal Sovereign was in the Dockyard to have a major refit, and I would suspect that that was the time that the painting was removed. And then we go on from various other commissioners. We've got Commissioner Proby, who asked for a bathroom to be fitted into the house. Bathroom not for bathing as we do today, but for medicinal purposes. We're not sure where that bathroom was. We've got some ideas, and I'm hoping with a little bit more detective work in the building we can identify that as well. There has been some major structural work completed inside the house, and there are various letters at various times as we go through the 18th century complaining about movement in the house and structural stability in the house. And we've got some lovely ironwork hidden within the floor voids that were put in to help hold the building together, to help stabilise it, and they've obviously done their job. And we know also in late 1700s that the windows at the north and south elevations were bricked in, again to help stabilise the structure. We can see on the 1774 model and the 1784 painting that the windows are in place. So we can kind of pin down when these things changed. And we are still discovering various bits and pieces about the house and how it was put together and how it was maintained. Very few of the internal partitions are true to their original locations. On the ground floor and on the first floor. On the second floor, it's more as it would have been built by St Lo, with some of the panelling still in place.
We will hear more from Nigel later. To find out more about visiting the Dockyard, go to the website, which is easily accessible by typing Historic Dockyard Chatham in your browser, or if you want the website address, it is thedockyard.co.uk. That is thedockyard.co.uk. You will be able to buy tickets online, and the great thing is the cost of a ticket gives you access to the Dockyard for a year. Please note the Dockyard closes to the public mid-November, apart from special, separately ticketed events. Brick Wrecks, Sunken Ships in Lego Bricks is making its UK debut at the Dockyard and is located in number 1 Smithery. The exhibition is open daily and due to overwhelming visitor demand has been extended to the 16th of November, and more information is available on the Dockyard website. On selected dates in July, August and September, we have the film location tour where you can see the iconic backdrops used in many films and TV series. Full details of this tour can be found on the website. Please note, this is a separately ticketed event. In this part, Nigel provides more detail about the contract works and some secrets that the restoration of Commissioner's House has revealed.
The reason we're starting on the Commissioner's House now is because back in 2019 there was one of these storm winds that came across, and it damaged some of the lead on the crown of the roof. And we put a scaffolding up at the side of the building and got onto the crown of the roof to see what damage was there and what we could do about it. It became evident that the lead roof was beyond its economic salvage. It had been patched several times before. I'd patched it several times before. It was now showing evidence the patches were starting to fail. The building had been due for redecoration in 2020, and of course COVID took that out. And with the need for replacing the lead, the redecoration of the building, we felt that it was a larger scheme that needed to be dealt with. And MEND 3 came along, MEND 3 being a government funding pot to help with the conservation work on historic buildings, and we applied for this. And when the MEND inspectors came round to have a look at what we were doing, we showed them the building and they understood exactly what we were looking at. They could see the lead had been repaired many times. They could see that we'd maintained the building best we could, but it was now got beyond planned preventative maintenance programme. We'd gone beyond that. And we were fortunate that they awarded the funding to allow us to get on and repair the building. So we are putting a new roof, we're putting new lead work, we're reusing the peg tiles where we can, where we need to do salvage, we will salvage. We are putting new fenestration in. We're putting a new mechanical system in for heating the building. We're going to use air source heat pumps, which is new to the Dockyard. We haven't got them anywhere else. And we're dipping our toe into the air source heat pump world. We're going to put a new electrical system in. We're going to put new fire alarms. We're going to upgrade the fire protection in the building so that staff stairs become a protected means of escape, so that we can use the upper floors to allow guests into the building, and we know that everyone's going to be safe within the space. So we've got all this work coming together. It's about to start. The scaffolding has now been completed, and I've had the first opportunity to walk around the roof without hanging off of a cherry picker or something like that, to be able to have a look at what we're actually dealing with. And I've got to say that I was surprised at the condition of the lead. It's far worse than I ever expected. Even the patches that we'd put in 3 or 4 years ago are starting to show signs of deterioration. The lead sheets are decaying, and it comes about from reactions between the underside of the lead and the substrate, the material that's been put on. Back in the 70s, when the roof was last relayed, the contractors at that time did what they thought was the correct processes, but they omitted the necessary ventilation that was inherent with old buildings. When you put old buildings together, you put timber boards down and you have gaps between the timber boards, and that allows air movement. And the lead relies on this air movement to stop it corroding from the inside. And it hadn't been done that way. It had been done in the ways that were thought were correct at the time. So we're suffering, and that roof is suffering and needs to come off completely to be relayed. Once the roof is done, we will have a sound base for the house to continue for another 100 years or more. We've got, within the floor voids on the first and second floors at the south end, are some substantial timber beams that run from east to west. These are 320 square timber beams. The knowledge that those engineers must have had, and the craftsmanship to have been able to make these metal plates sit together and pre-tension the beam in such a way that it hasn't deflected any more since, I think is quite remarkable. The same beam on the floor above was modified in the 1990 refurbishment, so part of the works that I did to the house originally, and we've used resins and steel wires to do the same process. It's a modern version of what we're seeing on the first floor. And I think for engineers, civil engineers, it's a real nice touch to be able to see these two ways of dealing with stiffening up principal beam in the house. To take the staff staircase out of its original position, we determined that the hole had been built as part of construction because of the way the mortise tenon joists had been put together. And we can tell that you can only put a mortise and tenon joint to a main beam as part of construction. If you're modifying it, it has to be a half lap joint, and we can determine where those joints are, and we can see what's been filled in and what's been taken out. And in the position where the staircase is currently, we can see where the construction principal beams have been cut in half to allow the new staircase to fit in. So as part of the process that we're going through now, we're going to carefully look inside these walls to make sure that everything is doing what it should do. The beam being cut in half is still a substantial beam. It's still 6 inches by 12 inches, which is more than most beams would be in a new house. So structurally, the building is in reasonably good condition. We will continue to monitor, we will continue to look at the building as we're going through the process. We're going to be working on the chimneys, 4 substantial chimneys, which are in reasonable condition, and they've got stays that are distinctive to the building that hold the chimneys in place. But the lower stays have embedded iron in the chimneys, and that's now started to corrode and cause the chimneys to have minor cracks in certain areas radiating from where the embedded iron is. And we're going to carefully remove that embedded iron, brick it up, and then put a modern strap round the chimney to hold it in place, but reusing the original stays. So that's going to happen on the chimneys, and our next stage of work is to strip the roof. And what I'm hoping to see on the crown of the roof are the marks of the balustrading that used to go round the roof that we've seen in various etchings, and potentially the marks of where the cupola used to be on top of the roof, that the commissioner used to be able to stand in and observe all the comings and goings in the dockyard. That was taken out in the 1740s. We've got letters saying it was being taken out, but I should still be able to see where it used to sit. And we can still see the staircase that comes through the roof that was accessed to it. Going on from there, we've obviously got the painting from the Royal Sovereign. Interesting little fact we found the other day, and this is how the house keeps giving out its secrets. I was with an art conservator looking at the painting itself to put a condition survey together to assess what work we need to do to the painting to conserve it for the next few years. And looking from the top of the painting, so the back side of the painting, bearing in mind it's fitted to a ceiling, we found a pencil note from November 1945 that we're assuming is when the painting was put back into the building, having been taken out for the war, was put in just a few months after the cessation of hostilities. So November 1945, the painting is returned back into the house, and the guy who did the work has signed his name on this piece of wood. So it's another little snippet of information that the house has given us. The contract's going to last about 18 months. We've got a wedding planned in July of 26, so I've got to have the house ready for the bride to get married. I can't let anyone down in that respect. So we've got a relatively short time frame, and the trust are acting as main contractors, so it's all on our heads. We're engaging specialist contractors to help. So we've got a specialist lead roofing contractor, we've got mechanical and electrical contractors working in the building, and we're going to use petitioners, plasterers, bricklayers we've used before and are familiar with the ways we work and how we work. And together as a big team, we will be putting this together. My role is to coordinate, to manage the health and safety, and to ensure that the works are done to the highest standard and are in a condition that will last for many, many years to come.
We are now on 10 podcast platforms, including Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. You can either visit any of the 10 podcast platform websites or download their free apps from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. If you have enjoyed our podcast, please hit the subscribe button and you will be sent a notification whenever a new episode is added. To contact us about the podcasts, please email us at podcast@chdt.org.uk. That's podcast@chdt.org.uk. So until the next time, this is John saying goodbye and take care.